Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Stotra the Shishimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Stotra the Shishimada's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shlahadadas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamunamaya Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. Brihat Madanga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 13, text 56. Dwastamaya Gunodarko. Dwastamaya Gunodarko. Nirudha Karanashraya. Nirudha Karanasaya. Nivartita Kilahara. Nivartita Kilahara. Aste Stanor Ivachala. Aste Stanor Ivachala. Tashyantaro Maya Maivabu. Tashyantarayo Maivabu. Sanyasta Kila Karmana. Sanyasta Kila Karmana. Dwastamaya Gunodarko. Niruda Karanashaya. Nivartita Kilahara. Aste Stanor Ivachala. Tashyantarayo Maivabu. Sanyasta Kila Karmana. Others? Sanyasta Kila Karmana. Vaishnavis. Dvasta, being destroyed. Maya guna, the modes of material nature. Udarka, after effects. Nirudha, being suspended. Karana ashaya, the senses and the mind. Nivartita, stopped. Akila, all. Ahara, food for the senses. Aste is sitting. Stanu, immovable. Eva, like. Achala, fixed. Tasya, his. Antaraya, hindrances. Ma eva, never like that. Abu, be. Sanyasta, renounced. Akila, all sorts. Karmana, material duties. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He will have to suspend all the actions of the senses, even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, he must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrances on the path. And I believe this is Narada Muni speaking, right? Okay. Purport. Dhritarashtra had attained, by the yogic process, the stage of negation of all sorts of material reaction. The effects of the material modes of nature draw the victim to indefatigable desires of enjoying matter. But one can escape such false enjoyment by the yogic process. Every sense is always busy in searching for its food, and thus the conditioned soul is assaulted from all sides and has no chance to become steady in any pursuit. Maharaj Yudhishthira was advised by Narada not to disturb his uncle by attempting to bring him back home. He was now beyond the attraction of anything material. The material modes of nature, the gunas, have their different modes of activities, but above the material modes of nature is a spiritual mode, which is absolute. Nirguna means without reaction. The spiritual mode and its effect are identical. Therefore, the spiritual quality is distinguished from its material counterpart by the word nirguna. After complete suspension of the material modes of nature, one is admitted to the spiritual sphere. And action dictated by the spiritual modes is called devotional service or bhakti. Bhakti is therefore nirguna, attained by direct contact with the Absolute. Om Agana Timanandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshudan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapi. So we're hearing about how Dhritarashtra's life comes to an end. You know, what he was doing, and we also heard in the previous purport what his outcome will be, his final destination. Prabhupada said that the Lord's mercy was bestowed upon him by his personal contact with Vidura, And when he was actually practicing the instructions of Vidura, the Lord helped him attain the highest perfectional stage, which is high. In the class 2 mornings ago, Druta Karma mentioned, and I thought I'd heard this too, that Dhritarashtra didn't get to go back to a Vaikuntha planet because he was too offensive. So whether I didn't find that, I couldn't research it last night and find that one way or the other. Maybe it's coming up in one of the purports that's coming up, I don't know. But either way, it really doesn't make a difference to the point I'm about to make, which is that considering who he was, he did really well. You know, whether he went back to Vaikuntha or whether he merged into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, if you look at his life as a whole, he did really good. Because, you know, Dhritarashtra was not a particularly pious fellow. You know, if you look, I mean, the first information we get of that is when, you know, he didn't get the throne because he was blind. You know, he was actually the eldest son, so he was, in one sense, he was entitled, but because he was blind, he didn't get it. And the thing was, he didn't really accept that. In other words, he wasn't like humble and submissive and, you know, philosophically just, okay, well, that's my karma, you know, even though I was the oldest because I'm blind. In other words, he remained ambitious. I'll read you something, and this is an excerpt from a lecture Prabhupada gave when he was talking about this. He says, Dhritarashtra was the father of the Kurus, and the Pandavas were the 5 brothers, the sons of the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Pandu. So Dhritarashtra was blind, born blind. Actually, he was to inherit, the eldest son of the family, but on account of his blindness, the throne was given to his younger brother Pandu. So the sons of Pandu, known as Pandavas, and the sons of Dhritarashtra are known as Kurus. So after all, politics, it is always very intriguing in all times. So Dhritarashtra was, and here's the point, Dhritarashtra was very sorry that he could not become the emperor. You see? It wasn't like he just, Hare Krishna. No, he was very sorry that he couldn't become the emperor. And he thought at least his son should be. Because he was blind, this is Prabhupada, I'm reading just Prabhupada's words. Because he was blind, that's all. But his sons were not blind. So naturally, father wants, and then Prabhupada says, so this is the whole history of Mahabharata. Intriguing, politics, and ultimately there was fight between the 2 parties, Kuru and Pandavas, to decide. So that's the thing, he really didn't accept it. I mean, he accepted it, he had no choice, but grudgingly. You know, see, he wasn't like, and that's significant because back in those days, especially, you know, in the circle in the association he was in, things weren't decided whimsically. It wasn't like, you know, it was some sort of like off-the-cuff kind of decision. Oh, well, you know, you're the oldest, but you're blind, so sorry, you know, you won't be able to do the job properly. We're going to have to give it to your younger brother. You know, it wasn't just like it was, they took a popular vote or, no. There must have been, like that decision was delivered to him on the basis of either some Shastric injunction or it came from some very exalted spiritual personality like Vyasadeva, you know, who happened to be his father, right? And or Bhishmadev, you know, they were there, or both. In other words, it could have been based on a Shastric injunction, plus it's being, you know, enacted, executed by these very exalted personalities that were present at the time. So he should have accepted it wholeheartedly, you know, if he was a really pious and surrendered sort of person. But he didn't. He maintained this ambition that, okay, I couldn't become the emperor, but my son should. I'm blind, but my son's not blind. See, so, you know, there was personal ambition there. Personal ambition, and that was a fault. And that was, turned out to be the seed of a fatal fault. Because what happened is, as time went on, and he had the 100 sons, you know, and Duryodhana was the oldest of them. Duryodhana was wholly and solely rotten to the core. You know, Dhritarashtra was, okay, he wasn't a pious person. He had some personal ambition, which is a fault. But in the association of his son, Duryodhana, he became, who was totally corrupt, you know, right from the get-go, right from his birth. He also became influenced on the, you know, in the bad side, in the negative way, despite the fact that he had Vidura there throughout his life trying to counteract it. So I can't remember clearly whether, you know, there were so many intrigues, you know, so many, I can't remember if Dhritarashtra was the person, I don't think he was who instigated the different intrigues against the Pandavas, like, you know, sending him to the house of lac, or trying to give the poison cake, and all these different things, or if he just went along with it. But, you know, if they were actually Duryodhana's ideas, and he just kind of, okay, well, yeah, why not? You know, he as his father, his duty was to say, no, you know, I mean, you can't do that. Okay, yeah, well, sure, we want the kingdom, but you can't try to kill your, you know, your cousins. That's, but he didn't. You know, either he came up with the plan, or it was Duryodhana's plan, but he went along with it. So he's equally guilty. Just like if somebody goes to rob a bank, you know, or if there's a bank robbery, the guy who goes inside the bank and holds the gun on the teller, and the guy who drives the getaway car when he comes out, they're equally guilty. You know, they're equally guilty, because the guy who's driving, you know, somebody say, oh, well, he just drove the car. He didn't do it. No, he's an accomplice to the crime. So that's, Dhritarashtra was an accomplice to the crime, you know, at best. At worst, maybe he was, as I said, the person was even instigating. I can't remember clearly on all the different turns, ins and outs of the whole pastime. But, so, you know, considering all that, he did really well. I'm going to build up to that. And another sort of thing I can think of, which gives us some insight into his character, how he was simultaneously a very fortunate and unfortunate person. He must have had an interesting, you know, background story there to his life. But on one occasion, I think it was when Akrura, Krishna sent Akrura to check out the situation, you know, what's going on in Hastinapur. You know, I want to know the politics, you know. So Akrura went there, and he was very, you know, astute politically person, so he could pick up. And he preached, Akrura preached to Dhritarashtra. I think I put that one out too. Yeah, so this is an excerpt from a lecture where Prabhupada refers to this particular pastime. He says, even Dhritarashtra knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Krishna sent his messenger to Dhritarashtra, Akrura, to advise him that, this is Akrura speaking, why you are envious of your nephews. You stop this. Before the war of Kurukshetra, so Dhritarashtra admitted that, this is Dhritarashtra speaking, I know the advice has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I am so unfortunate, I cannot give up this habit. Please excuse me. So even Dhritarashtra knew he couldn't, you know, he wasn't pious enough, he wasn't strong enough, or whatever, to, you know, to take the advice which he knew was coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what was his qualification? When you stop and think about it, here's a guy, you know, who is like an accomplice to the crime of trying to kill, not just usurp the kingdom. I mean, they went beyond that. It was okay if they tried to, you know, they were trying to kill him. He was trying to kill the Pandavas, his nephews. And he went along with all the different, you know, schemes for that. And on top of that, he knows Krishna. He's saying, I know Krishna's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but sorry, I can't do what I can't do what he wants me to do. So what is his qualification for, as Prabhupada says here in the purport, let me find it again. Yeah. attaining the highest perfectional stage? Well, we know the answer. It's a rhetorical question. He had only one qualification. And his one qualification was that somehow or another, he liked his, was it younger brother? He liked his younger brother, Vidura. He liked him, and he actually he appreciated him. You know, he liked him. He's his brother, of course. He had affection for him, and he could appreciate that. No, he's a wise man, and when he speaks, he's not speaking out of malice. He's, you know, and so Dhritarashtra kind of, despite the fact that he was so influenced by Duryodhana, Vidura was like the counterbalance. You know, he was there in his life throughout, and he was always trying to give him good advice, and he always did give good advice, right? And Dhritarashtra was, while he couldn't really follow it, it kind of like, it kept him from going over the you know, the deep end there, so to speak, altogether. And even towards the end there, Vidura comes back, and you know, now he's, after what happened, he listens more. You know, he's even more respectful. Oh, just, yeah, one more incident with, oh, I'll get to that later. Yeah, so his only qualification was that he had some attachment to Vidura. He was affectionate, respectful, and ultimately obedient. And that's it. Otherwise, nothing. If you look at his whole life, really he did nothing to qualify to go back to Godhead or to go to the Brahmajyoti or whatever ultimately happened to him. I mean, just to give an analogy, imagine that there's like some guru coolie who is like really unhappy with ISKCON, and throughout his whole life he just tries to make trouble for ISKCON and, you know, bringing up court cases or this or that. They're going on the internet and blaspheming the leaders, you know. And then at the last stage of but somehow that particular person likes Radhanath Maharaj, or just, you know, off the top of my head. And he just happens to like him and think he's a, you know, good devotee, all right? And then at the last, after trying to give ISKCON trouble all throughout his entire adult life and then blaspheming the leaders, but he decides at the end, you know, he listens to some good advice by his Radhanath Maharaj and is very respectful, and etc. It's kind of like that, you know. Dhritarashtra was bad news throughout his entire life, but just because of that one qualification, he got saved. And we're hearing, even this morning, Savas was reading, actually the last couple mornings, we've been hearing about further confirmation on this same point, the importance of the association of the devotees. I think in this morning's purport, Prabhupada said, that's what Savas read, Prabhupada said twice. He said, if one gives up the association of only an animal, right? He said, only an animal will give up the association of the devotees and stop chanting Hare Krishna. I think he repeated it twice in that same purport. So, and in the purport before that, it was talking about how just by hearing from the pure devotee, his words are not ordinary words. His words are transcendently surcharged. Something, he gave some beautiful metaphor about the saffron dust particles coming off the lotus feet of the Lord. You know, the pure devotee's words are surcharged by that. You know, they're spiritually potent. So, and just by hearing the pure devotee speak, one's life is transformed, you know. And so once again, you know, further emphasis on that same point. So that's you know, one big point that kind of, as far as this whole pastime goes, that really comes to my mind, that the power and the importance of properly, you know, taking the association of devotees properly. That just by doing that, just by exactly, you know, doing exactly what we're doing, that according to what I'm hearing here and you know, what Savas Prabhu was reading in the morning, that's sufficient. That's sufficient for, you know, somebody to get purified and advance in spiritual life and ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. Okay? So that's the main point. And then one other point I wanted to make is in terms of like more talking about today's verse, you know, it's describing how Dhritarashtra's, on the instruction of Vidura, he's doing this Ashtanga yoga system. And he's able to do it. You know, he's able to do it. So the reason I want to bring this up is because this is not something, it should be completely clear but to everybody, but just in case it's not, Ashtanga yoga is something one could do for spiritual realization, but not now. Not now. The biggest concession I ever heard Prabhupada make was that, maybe in a lecture with that book, Perfection of Yoga, he might have said, some few rare men, you know. But generally speaking, Prabhupada made it really clear throughout his purports, and even you don't have to go any further than the Bhagavad Gita, that you can't do this system now, in this day and age, for self-realization, for spiritual realization. You could do it and you might experience some health benefits. That's there, right? But it's not even, what people are doing today, it's not yoga. Yoga means to link to the Supreme. What people are doing today when they get together and they do some, what they call asanas, it's more in the, if as Dhruta Karma said in his class a couple of days ago, if you don't have the yama and the niyama, the do's and the don'ts, you know, if you don't have the character, if you're not like, have developed, just, it's not gonna, it doesn't have the effect. You know, it certainly won't help you make any progress towards any kind of spiritual realization. So, you know, sometimes we see devotees kind of playing around and, you know, sitting like this and, okay, but I don't think, we shouldn't kid ourselves. At least my understanding of what I've read in Prabhupada's books it's not, no spiritual benefit at all whatsoever. You know, our process is Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam, you know, chanting the holy name. It's the only way, the only way, the only way. And, you know, Prabhupada would repeatedly make the point that people in this day and age, they're not fit. You know, take, for instance, Dhritarashtra, okay? He was instructed by Vidura to do that. And I think it's mentioned in some purport that part of the reason why that was because, you know, he was very offensive up till that point in his life. I mean, he, you know, if Vidura would have had him try to, you know, encourage him to take to the process of hearing and chanting, I don't think he might not have been able to pull that off. And another point was, Dhritarashtra was like, you know, in case you're thinking, maybe I'll try it, he was a very powerful person, physically. It's said that he had the strength of 10,000 elephants, Dhritarashtra. And there's one pastime that kind of demonstrated that. You know, he wasn't just some sort of wimpy blind guy or something like that. No, he was like super powerful. Because what happened was, at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, you know, he was still alive. Obviously, he was still in Hastinapur. So now the Pandavas came with Krishna, and they were, you know, meeting now. Everything was all over. And Bhima had killed all 100, I think 99, because Yuyutsu defected and fought with the Pandavas. But he killed all his sons, basically. He killed all his sons, Dhritarashtra's sons. And Dhritarashtra was kind of like fuming, but he was keeping it to himself. Anyway, so what happened was, you know, so they got there and they were talking with him, and it's over now, and whatever you know, I don't know exactly what the conversation was, but he embraced Yudhishthira, right? Dhritarashtra embraced Yudhishthira, and then he was going to embrace Bhima, but Krishna was right there, and Krishna could understand that, wait a second, something's up. He could, well, of course, Krishna's omniscient, but Krishna knew something. He knew what was in his mind. He knew what he was up to. So before, he indicated to Bhima that there was a metal statue of Bhima right there where they were, and it belonged to Duryodhana. He used to practice his club fighting and stuff like that, hitting the metal statue of Bhima. See? Huh? Iron, yeah, which is stronger than just plain old metal. And it was like solid iron, right? So So Krishna indicated to Bhima, hey, just push that forward, you know. And he pushed that forward, and because he was blind, you know, Dhritarashtra said, so are you in front of me now, Bhima? Yeah, okay. And he, you know, he grabbed the iron statue, and he hugged it so hard the thing just collapsed. You know, he actually broke the iron. That's how powerful he was. So he was intending to do that to Bhima, you know, who would probably catch you off guard. Bhima's not going to, you know, brace himself like that when he's going to be hugged by his uncle. So he would stand there. Next thing he knows, it's like a python wrapping himself around you and pulling as hard as he can. Anyway, so he didn't get the chance. But that's how strong he was. So in other words, you know, he went and practiced that Ashtanga yoga system, but you know, he wasn't just any old ordinary person. It's like he was powerful. So point being that I think it's a good idea for the devotees to 100% get it out of your head that there's any spiritual, that we have any kind of ability to do that system, or that there's any benefit in doing that system. There's not. And Prabhupada has said, if you have to read just the purports in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's really clear that, you know, yoga means bhakti yoga. You know, yoga means bhakti yoga, and that other type of yoga, it's definitely, yeah, it's bona fide, but it's something for people who lived 100,000 years and were like totally different people than the people of this day and age. So, you know, just don't let it, if you're still holding some little attraction or sentimental thing in your mind for that kind of yoga, just kick it out on the basis of Prabhupada's statements. And, you know, 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, if you read those purports, you'll see Prabhupada, forget it. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, sir, Prabhu.
Please forgive me, but yesterday I meant to announce, this is for Bhaktas and all the Bhaktas, that Sunday at 12:45 in the temple room, Savas Prabhu and I'll assist, we'll have bhajan class and the standards of kirtan in New Dwarka. This Sunday, for all you out there, at 12:45, anyone and everyone can attend, please. Forgive me for having to do that, but I forgot yesterday.
Oh, it's okay. Sachinandana?
Prabhuji, thank you very much for your nice class. One point that you made, and I would ask you to elaborate a little bit on this, please, is association with devotees. Say some key points on some proper etiquette or proper ways to associate, and also to be good association for others as well.
Well, just the obvious.
I'll save it for my class. I know Savas Prabhu has, and others and yourself, you know, we've had this conversation before at different times about the importance of good association in Krishna consciousness. So could you elaborate a little bit on this, please?
Well, I'll make one comment, okay?
Fine.
And I'll let you say the rest in your class, whenever it is tomorrow. That I did some calculation the other morning. I was just thinking about, you know, devotees and how we figure in the whole overall picture. I figured there's about 325, according to recent figures, there's about 325 million people in the United States, okay? Now, do you think there's 325 people in the United States chanting 16 rounds and following the Four Good Principles? I do. I think there's 325, that's not much. 325 people. No, there's 325 million people in America, so there's probably 325, at least 320. I would say there's probably closer to, say, 3,250. Ballpark figures, okay? So say there's 3,250 people, and Sura's going like this. He's kind of doubtful maybe there's even that many, but let's you know, for the benefit of the doubt, let's give, for argument's sake, let's say there's 3,250 people in the United States chanting 16 rounds and following the Four Good Principles. So that's 1 in 100,000. So that means devotees are pretty rare. You know, sometimes you come to the temple, we look at each other and go, oh, there's so-and-so, you know. But so-and-so is a rare soul. So-and-so is 1 in 100,000 people. So it's a good thing to, and it might be more. It might be 1 in 200,000 or something. I don't know the real figure, but so it's always good to remind ourselves of that devotees are special people. Materially, they might not seem very special, So, wow, that guy. No, but you got to always remember that no, this is somebody special. They're made that decision to be a devotee of Krishna, and that makes them very, very special. And that's also in Krishna's opinion as well. Comment or question?
Thank you very much for a nice exposition of the whole situation with Dhritarashtra. I just wanted to, if I may, make one point. As far as Dhritarashtra goes, he was not at all ever favorable to Vidura. Okay, Vidura was extremely friendly, loving, and helpful to the Pandavas, and the Pandavas were the means by which Dhritarashtra could never become the king, nor could his son ever become the king. So the question is that what happened here? How was he able to follow the instruction of Vidura if he had some antipathy or some hostility towards him? And the way he could follow, first of all, what was Dhritarashtra's state of mind at that time? The war was over. He had lost his 100 sons, so many allies, and that filled him with great grief. He was full of sorrow, and he was full of emptiness, and there was nothing else he could do except follow Vidura. In other words, if he had any arguments against anything that Vidura had, as he did when Akrura was sent earlier on to see what by Krishna to see what Dhritarashtra was doing, if he had any argument which was, well, this is I know what you're saying, it's all right, Akrura, but my destiny is such that I must do what I'm doing, and we cannot really outdo or undo our destiny. That was his argument before. In other words, he was agreeing with Vidura, but he was saying that I have a destiny, and therefore that's the way it goes, and therefore I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. But now, his destiny has brought him such grief, such sorrow, such all feelings which he could hardly even cope with. So that convinced him that what Vidura was saying here was that your time is up. You're going to die soon. Look at where you are and look at where you're going. You're going to hell if you continue on this path. You have nowhere else to go because, look, as you mentioned in the class, look at all the horrible things you did in agreement with your son. Yes, Duryodhana, he was the mastermind criminal. And initially, externally, his father would say, no, that's not a good idea, I think, because it goes against virtue, it goes against piety, we'll have to suffer for that. But inwardly, he said, of course, I want you, my son, Duryodhana, to be the king, because although I can't be the king, on and on, because after all, it has to go to a younger person. And the younger person should not be Yudhishthira. It should be you, because you're an extension of me. And I want I to become the king, and that will happen through you. So even though he knew his son was full of evil, unvirtuous, impious propensities and actions, nonetheless, this is the main point, that his ambition to be king was so strong that he was willing to ignore, disregard, not even care about virtue. The only thing he could care about is that which he was attached to, emotionally attached to, which was his son, and he was also attached to the idea of being king. So when you put the two things together, he simply went along with Duryodhana, in spite of the fact he knew it was all wrong about the house of lack and all of these types of things. So therefore, I just wanted to clarify one point, and that was that we should never think that Dhritarashtra was really favorable to Vidura. When Duryodhana actually told Vidura to get out of the kingdom, we didn't see Dhritarashtra correcting that. He didn't say to his son, I don't think that's the right thing. After all, he's my brother. After all, he's your uncle, and you should not do that. He never said that. He simply went along with it, which proves that he really remained hostile to Vidura to the end, but because he didn't want to go to hell, therefore he was already in a hellish mentality. He was already sinking in the fires of gloom and doom and grief. He didn't want to go any further. He wanted to go at least up to a position of some degree of peacefulness. And that degree of peacefulness would be, as again it was mentioned, that he could not go to Goloka Vrindavan. That's impossible. He had no love for the Pandavas, and therefore he had no love for Krishna's great devotees, but he could go to the impersonal Brahman, you see. And that's actually what's mentioned, that he would go there, and which is the last snare of illusion. So, as you nicely mentioned for many minutes, that all you get there is a continuance of illusion. The big bright light, which eventually becomes very boring and eventually causes one to have to fall down to the material world and again start becoming spiritual all over again. So therefore, that was the only option available to Dhritarashtra, the big white light, or the impersonal Brahman realization, which to a devotee is a form of hell. So therefore, a devotee would see Dhritarashtra as a pathetic soul burning in hell, but nonetheless going to perhaps a little higher hell, a better hell, which is the impersonal Brahman.
Thank you. That was a great addition. Thank you very much. So we probably should stop there. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Radha Kripa Kataksaki.
Picking up your mats, ki jai.
Servant of the servant ki jai. Dasuna Das ki jai.